You know that feeling when someone only calls you when they need something. When your phone lights up and, for a second, your heart leaps, only to realize it's another one of those, "Hey, just wondering if you're free," messages that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. That sting, that's not in your head. That's your intuition screaming, you're being treated like a backup plan. And that's not okay. Being someone's second choice is a silent war on your self-worth. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it's relentless. They don't outright say you're not enough, but they show you. In how they cancel plans last minute, how they reach out only when their preferred options fall through, how they expect you to always be there, like some emotional safety net they can fall back on when life doesn't go as planned. And at some point, without realizing it, you begin to accept it. You convince yourself, at least they need me sometimes. At least they reach out. Maybe that means I still matter. But deep down, it eats away at you. Because you know the truth. You know that if you were their first choice, they wouldn't hesitate. You wouldn't be a contingency. You'd be priority one. And yet, here you are, waiting by the phone, checking their social media, wondering why you're good enough to lean on, but not good enough to choose. That cycle. It's not love, it's not friendship, it's self-erasure disguised as patience. I've seen people tie themselves into emotional knots trying to be good enough for those who never intended to stay. They try harder, give more, compromise deeper, until all that's left is a ghost of who they were. And for what? A few breadcrumbs of attention, a few fleeting moments where they feel seen. That's not connection. That's survival mode. That's emotional starvation. And it's time we stopped pretending it's anything but that. You weren't born to be on standby. You weren't put on this earth to wait for someone to realize your worth. You're not a convenience. You're not someone's just in case. But here's the real kicker. Most people don't even realize they're doing this to you. They'll say they care. They'll say you matter. But when it's time to choose, time to prioritize, time to show up, they disappear. And in that silence, in that delay, you find your answer. It's in those moments you have to decide, am I going to keep accepting this? Am I going to keep letting people treat me like a backup plan just because I'm afraid of being alone? Because let me tell you, being alone and being disrespected are two very different things. One gives you peace, the other steals it. One gives you room to grow, the other keeps you stuck in emotional limbo. Somewhere along the way, you started believing that love had to be earned by endurance. That if you just held on long enough, stayed available long enough, waited patiently enough, they'd finally pick you. But real love doesn't require proving your worth. Real love recognizes it. Real respect shows up consistently. It doesn't vanish when someone better comes along. And it certainly doesn't come with conditions that leave you drained and questioning your own value. I need you to understand something. You being there for others is beautiful, but not when it comes at the cost of abandoning yourself. Not when you're constantly trying to win someone over who already decided you're not their first pick. That's not devotion, that's self-destruction masked as loyalty. You keep thinking, if I leave, what if they realize what they lost? But that's not the point. The point isn't to make them regret losing you. The point is to remember what it feels like to choose yourself. To stop waiting to be picked and start walking in the power of someone who already knows they were meant for more. When you stop showing up for people who never truly showed up for you, something powerful happens. You reclaim your time, your energy, your peace. You stop running after love like it's something scarce. You begin to realize that being alone isn't the enemy. Settling is. And that's when you start to grow. Because the truth is, it was never about being chosen by them. It was about choosing you. You don't even notice it happening at first. That slow internal shift. That quiet voice that starts whispering, maybe I'm just not enough. It creeps in after the third time they forgot your birthday. After they cancelled on you again last minute. After they chose someone else to confide in, laugh with, spend time with. You start telling yourself stories, not because they're true, but because they help you make sense of the pain. I'm probably just too sensitive. They're busy, they have a lot going on. Maybe I expect too much. But deep down, there's this unshakable ache, and it sounds a lot like rejection. And over time, if you're not careful, that ache becomes a belief. Not just a feeling that passes, but a frame you start seeing yourself through. I guess I'm just not the one people choose. That's the lie that gets planted. And it doesn't just stay in your relationships, it spreads into how you show up at work, how you speak to yourself, how you navigate the world. You start shrinking. You start second guessing. You internalize rejection like it's your identity. But here's the truth. Rejection hurts the most when you attach it to your value. When you take someone else's inability to see your worth and turn it into a mirror reflecting back falsehoods about who you are. You make their choices your burden. Their lack of appreciation becomes your self-doubt. And without realizing it, you hand over the authority to define you. That's not fair. And it's not the truth. Sometimes, people don't choose you because they're not ready, because they're broken, because they don't even know how to love themselves, let alone someone else. But none of that has anything to do with your worth. The problem is, we've been taught to make it personal, to see rejection as a verdict instead of a redirection. So we cling to it, replay it, build entire stories around it. And you know what happens then? You start to abandon yourself. You start to edit who you are in hopes that next time, someone will stay. You water yourself down, try to be more agreeable, less demanding, more easygoing. You start living in reaction to other people's approval. But living like that, it's exhausting. And worse, it keeps you in a holding pattern, waiting, hoping, desperate for someone to finally validate the version of you you've been suffocating just to be liked. But listen closely. If they didn't see your value, it doesn't mean it wasn't there. It just means they weren't capable of recognizing it. And you have to stop making that your responsibility. It's not your job to convince people you're enough. It's your job to remember that you always were. You weren't put here to be a reflection of someone else's approval. You were put here to express your truth, fully, unapologetically, fiercely. But you can't do that if you keep internalizing rejection like it's a confirmation. It's not. It's feedback, not finality. It's a closed door, not a dead end. You have to stop thinking that just because someone walked away, you were unworthy of staying for. Sometimes people leave because they can't meet you at the level you're growing into. And yes, it hurts. It's supposed to. You're human. You feel deeply because you care. But don't confuse pain with proof. Pain isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you loved with your whole heart, that you showed up fully, that you had the courage to be vulnerable in a world that rewards detachment. That's not weakness. That's strength in its rawest form. So if you've been carrying around the weight of other people's silence, their absence, their lack of commitment, put it down. That weight was never yours to carry. You don't have to keep performing for love. You don't have to keep twisting yourself into knots, hoping someone finally chooses you. You are not here to be an extra in someone else's story. You are the main character in your own. And it's time you started acting like it. Because the moment you stop internalizing rejection is the moment you stop negotiating your value. It's strange how early it starts. The conditioning, the quiet, unspoken training that teaches you to shrink, to smile even when something hurts, to wait your turn, to not make things uncomfortable. You were taught to be agreeable, to be liked, to not stir the waters. And maybe that worked for a while. Maybe it kept things calm, got you approval, made people around you happy. But at some point, that same conditioning starts to backfire, because now you don't know how to ask for what you deserve. You don't know how to demand space in rooms you belong in. You've become so good at settling that you forgot how to rise. And here's the thing. They don't tell you what settling actually looks like. Settling isn't just accepting a mediocre job or being in a half-hearted relationship. Settling is what happens when you silence your voice to keep someone else comfortable. It's when you hold back your ideas because you don't want to seem too much. It's when you stay in a situation that doesn't nourish you because you think you don't have a right to ask for more. It's subtle and it's dangerous. Because once you start normalizing that, you start lowering the bar for everything. Your standards, your self-worth, your potential. And after a while, you begin to see yourself through the eyes of people who only ever saw you as a placeholder. You begin to think that maybe this is all there is, That maybe people like you don't get to have more. That maybe being a backup plan, a second choice, a convenient option, is just your role in life. And that couldn't be further from the truth. You weren't born to be invisible. You weren't meant to move through life trying not to offend, trying not to take up space, trying to be what everyone else needs you to be. You were made to build, to lead, to shine. But you can't do that if you're constantly muting yourself just to stay in someone's good graces. People don't rise by being agreeable. They rise by being truthful. And sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes it disrupts things. But you can't fear disruption if you're chasing growth. Growth is disruption. It tears through the old so the new can emerge. But if you've been taught your whole life to play it safe, to not speak too loudly, to be liked at all costs, you'll start seeing your own greatness as a threat. And that's when you start hiding it. That's the trap. Believing that your strength will push people away, so you keep it buried. But if someone leaves because you stood in your truth, let them. If someone pulls away because you stopped playing small, they were never meant to walk with you anyway. Don't dull your shine to fit into someone else's shadow. Don't clip your wings just because they're scared of how high you might fly. You've spent too long waiting for permission. Permission to speak. Permission to ask for more. Permission to dream bigger. But no one's going to hand that to you. The people who benefit from your silence are never going to encourage your voice. The ones who like you better when you're quiet aren't going to celebrate when you start roaring. But that roar, that's who you really are. That fire inside you, the one you've been dimming to survive, that's not a flaw. That's the fuel. That's the part of you that refuses to settle. That's the part of you that's ready to rise. The world doesn't need another passive observer. It doesn't need another person saying, well, this is just how things are. It needs you, fully alive, fully committed to no longer waiting for someone to hand you what you were always meant to create for yourself. That power, it was never outside of you. It was buried beneath years of trying to be easy to love, easy to manage, easy to ignore, but not anymore, not now. Because the moment you realize you were conditioned to settle is the moment you take your life back. There's something we don't talk about enough. The places we keep going back to, even after they've stopped feeling like home. We return to the conversations that leave us feeling unseen. We revisit the relationships where we were barely held together. We cling to situations that we've outgrown, hoping they'll eventually become what we needed all along. And why? Because somewhere deep down, we believe that if we just stay long enough, prove ourselves hard enough, love them deep enough, they'll finally change their mind, finally choose us, finally treat us the way we deserve to be treated. But the truth is, some places were meant to be walked away from, not fixed, not chased, not fought for endlessly, just left behind. When you're used to abandonment, it's easy to confuse persistence with self-worth. You tell yourself, I'm not a quitter. I'm loyal. I don't give up on people. And that's admirable. But not when it becomes a prison. Not when staying is a way of proving your value to someone who never truly saw it to begin with. That's not loyalty. That's self-neglect wrapped in hope. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away without fanfare, without drama, without begging to be understood. Just leave, quietly, fully, completely. Because if we're honest, you already know which doors are closed. You've knocked long enough. You've stood outside in the rain hoping someone would let you back in, only to realize they bolted it shut long ago. And still, you wait. Still, you convince yourself that maybe, just maybe, they'll come around. But waiting in front of closed doors doesn't open them. It only delays your healing. We don't just chase people, we chase our own illusions. We chase what we thought could have been. We chase the version of them we fell for, the one that existed in a handful of beautiful moments scattered between long stretches of absence and confusion. But love isn't a scavenger hunt for someone's potential. It's not your job to piece someone together with your hope. You were not put here to beg. You were not put here to try and earn what should have been freely given. You keep waiting for them to recognize your worth. But here's the truth. They did. They just didn't value it. And that's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. Because people always recognize light. The real question is, Are they ready to hold it without trying to dim it? Staying where you are not fully seen is a slow kind of death. You lose yourself piece by piece, moment by moment, until you don't even recognize the person staring back in the mirror. And still you stay, out of habit, out of fear, out of the lie that this is the best you'll ever get. But nothing about you was meant to stay small. Nothing about your heart was built for rooms that shrink your voice. You have to stop trying to belong to places that don't know how to hold you. You have to stop offering your soul to people who only take pieces of it when it's convenient for them. You deserve wholeness. You deserve consistency. You deserve to be met with the same energy you give without having to lower your standards or compromise your dignity. I get it. Leaving hurts. Letting go stings. There's a grief that comes with finally admitting something's over, especially when you invested so much of yourself into it. You think about all the time, the effort, the emotions you poured in, and it's tempting to stay, if only to not feel like all of it was wasted. But staying doesn't save the past, it just sacrifices your future. There's bravery in saying, this is no longer enough. There's strength in choosing yourself over comfort. And no, it won't be easy at first, but healing never is. Growth never is. You're not walking away from love. You're walking away from the version of love that kept breaking you. And that difference matters. Because the moment you stop chasing places you were meant to leave, you start creating space for the things that are actually meant for you. You've probably done it without even realizing. Dimmed your light just a little, held back your ideas, made yourself smaller so someone else wouldn't feel threatened. You told yourself, it's not the right time, or I don't want to come off as too much. And so you stayed quiet. You smiled when you wanted to speak. You nodded when you wanted to disagree. You blended in, hoping that maybe if you became easier to digest, someone would finally see you as enough. And the tragedy is, they never did. Because people don't see what you don't show. And if you keep hiding your fire just to fit into someone else's shadow, you'll keep attracting people who only love the watered down version of you. Somewhere along the way, you started believing that your strength was too loud, that your honesty was too raw, that your ambition was intimidating. So you toned it all down. You turned the volume of your spirit to a whisper, thinking that maybe you'd be more lovable that way. But here's the truth. When you shrink yourself to fit, the people who notice you aren't the ones who truly value you. They're the ones who benefit from your silence. And the longer you play small, the more you start forgetting how big you were meant to be. What no one tells you is that the real you, the unfiltered, unapologetic, radiant you, isn't too much. You're just in the wrong room if that kind of energy feels unwelcome. The right people won't flinch when you speak your truth. They won't pull away when you set boundaries. They won't disappear when you stop playing the version of yourself they're comfortable with. The right people don't just tolerate your growth. They honor it. But to attract that, to call in that kind of presence, you have to get honest with yourself. You have to stop editing your identity in the hopes that someone will finally stay. You have to stop molding your personality around their comfort zones. Because every time you do that, you betray yourself. And self-betrayal is the slowest kind of heartbreak. It doesn't explode all at once. It wears you down quietly until one day you look in the mirror and realize you don't recognize the person staring back. You were born to be fully expressed. Not perfect, not palatable. Expressed. That means messy, real, vibrant, emotional, bold. It means laughing too loud, dreaming too big, caring too deeply. It means showing up as all of you, even if some people can't handle it. Especially if some people can't handle it. Because that's when you know you're living in your truth, not their expectations. We're not here to perform for approval. We're not here to be someone's second option, someone's fallback, someone's maybe one day. We are here to be chosen, fully, clearly, confidently. And that begins with choosing ourselves. Not the masked version, not the polished, filtered version we present to win love. The real version, the one with sharp edges and soft spots. The one that has been through hell and still has hope. The one that's been told to settle and still keeps reaching for more. Stop waiting for someone to give you permission to be yourself. No one else is coming to crown you. No one else is going to hand you your worth like a gift wrapped in validation. That crown has been sitting in your soul since the day you were born. It's just been buried under years of trying to fit in where you were never meant to belong. And the people who truly see you, they're not looking for a version of you that pleases them. They're looking for the one who finally decided to show up, unfiltered and unafraid. Because your power doesn't lie in being liked by everyone. It lies in being fully aligned with yourself, even if that means being misunderstood by a few. So if you've been living in fear of being too much, let me ask you this: too much for who? The ones who benefited from your silence. The ones who only loved you when you made yourself smaller. You're not too much. You've just been in spaces too limited to hold your capacity. Because the moment you stop diluting your presence is the moment you start drawing in the love that was meant to find the real you. There comes a moment in your life, quiet, often unremarkable on the outside, where you look around and realize that no one is coming to save you. Not the person you kept waiting for, not the apology you thought would heal you, not the closure you've begged the universe to send. Just you. That moment doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like loss. It feels like standing in the wreckage of everything you gave your heart to and thinking, this is it. This is all that's left. But what if I told you that moment is also the beginning? Because when the weight of disappointment settles, when the illusion of being rescued finally dissolves, what remains is something far more powerful than rescue responsibility. The choice to stop waiting, stop hoping someone else will hand you back the life you kept pressing pause on. The decision to stop building your identity around the people who left, the ones who overlooked you, the ones who didn't show up the way you needed. Because the truth is, waiting for them to validate your worth will keep you locked in a loop that goes nowhere. You were never meant to be someone's almost. There, if things were different, there may be. But the longer you keep your life on hold for someone to recognize your value, the longer you delay your becoming. You see, life will not wait. It's not going to tap you on the shoulder and say, okay, now it's your turn. You have to take it. You have to choose to move, even when you're still healing. Especially when you're still healing. Because healing isn't about getting back to who you were. It's about rising into who you were always meant to be, now that you've seen what you'll never settle for again. And it's hard. I know. It's hard to stop looking back. It's hard to stop checking if they noticed you left. Hard to accept that someone you loved deeply never intended to love you the same. But the goal was never to be loved in pieces. The goal was never to fit inside a life that kept cutting off parts of you just to make you easier to handle. The goal has always been to live fully, to love bravely, and to stop handing over your power in exchange for someone else's attention. Let them go. Let the version of you that waited by the phone die. Let the one who begged to be chosen rest. Let the one who thought love had to hurt in order to be real finally breathe. Because love, real love, doesn't confuse you. It doesn't keep you guessing. It doesn't punish your vulnerability. And your life, your beautiful, fierce, complicated life, doesn't begin when someone else decides you're worthy. It begins when you do. You have to reclaim your voice. Not the polite one, not the one that says what people want to hear, but the one that tells the truth, even when it shakes. You have to stop performing, stop auditioning for roles in other people's stories. Start writing your own. And it starts by refusing to be the supporting character in your own life any longer. You've survived too much to keep playing small. You've felt pain deep enough to drown in, and you're still here. You've loved people who couldn't hold you, forgiven those who never said sorry, stayed when you should have run. And still, you rise. That's not weakness. That's not desperation. That's proof. Proof that your heart, even broken, beats louder than the silence they left behind. So no, you don't need their love to validate your existence. You don't need closure from the ones who disappeared. You don't need anyone to tell you it's your time. It is your time, right now. No more delay. No more waiting for perfect conditions or someone else's permission. You were not born to be an afterthought. You were born to be a force. And the moment you choose yourself, not quietly, not halfway, but fully, that's when everything changes.